soon. I don't know. There it is. There it is.
There
Now we're
it is.
good.
There it
Let me turn the music down a little bit. And there we go. All right, one more tune, and then we'll be on like the radio and the internet
Okay.
simultaneously. And that I'll do my best to telegraph what's going on, because I got to be honest, I've been pre-taping a lot of these, so it's like it's been a
Okay.
while since I've done the without a net.
It's like, yeah, serious high wire act here.
It is, yeah, a little bit.
Day
I
after
mean,
4th
I
of July, everyone's a little fuzzy.
think, yeah, I think, I forgot. Life goes on after a holiday. You have to
Mm-hmm.
get up and actually do things.
Yeah, we had like a 9-day weekend or something. It felt like so.
It was, yeah, and I think it was just kind of like, oh yeah, we're kind of, it's like, oh wait, not actually. So I think even with this cup of coffee, I'm probably gonna end up taking a nap after this. But how was your 9-day weekend?
It was great. It was great. Saw fireworks, went to parade, did all the things. Hot dogs were eaten, steaks
Hot
were.
dogs were, yeah,
Yeah.
I had to get the hot dog in there. Yeah.
Yep. So all the America you can
Mhm.
handle in a weekend. So yep.
Yeah, and that was I think that was exactly the right dosage for me.
Yeah. Did you catch any fireworks or?
No, because I was working. I had to work that Les Claypool show, and I feel like that was kind of the majority of like the fireworks end of
Yeah.
things. I could see things because when you're in St. Paul, like when you get that part of downtown where you're kind of cresting the bluff, you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of see other like outer ring like burbs in the
Right.
metro. You can
Because you're
kind
down
of
in
see
the
the
valley.
tail end of their displays.
Yeah.
So I think that's the extent of fireworks we had. We definitely lit off, or our friends' kids were lighting off like the Minnesota fireworks.
Oh,
Like the
sure. The
the
low,
snakes
the
and the
low.
sparklers, and we
Yeah.
definitely while some of our neighbors were definitely shooting off some Wisconsin fireworks.
Yeah.
uh,
Contraband was going up. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's like well, I think what I think is funny about the discourse around kids shooting off fireworks, like it just really feels like those like stupid 80s ski comedies where it's just
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, these darn kids, where it's just like,
Yeah.
well, what do you expect? You guys closed outside.
Yeah. Right.
They got nothing to do, and everything that they're allowed to do, you're telling them not to do. So
Mm-hmm.
it's eventually they're just gonna start being the kids where it's just like, let's show that Dean,
Yeah. Let's blow
Like,
shit
right,
off. Yeah.
stand by. New Crush scene. We also had some new Falcon Arrow, and we also had some new Fathom Lane here on Desert Islands, making a mixtape for Fathom Lane. And guess who is joining me right now? Michael, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for coming back. I'm excited to have you back because the last time you were on this show, we were, it almost feels like pre-internet times. Like
I know.
we didn't have a vid chat. We didn't have nothing. We were doing it like it was almost like a podcast.
It's like duct tape,
Yeah,
maybe like.
audio only? What was that about?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we are technically audio only to some of our friends tuning in here at KFAI 90.3 FM in Minneapolis, but we do have some friends. I'm looking at, I know I'm not great at responding to the comments on Twitch, but I do see them, and I'm sorry. During the live things, I get into the I get into the octopus arms thing, and it's just I get carried away and I miss it. But I do see you there hanging out with us. Appreciate you. Michael, thank you for coming back. And we just
Thanks
heard
for
a new
having me,
cut.
Doc.
Absolutely. We just heard a new cut off of your new record. And I want to talk about this thing because every record y'all do, I really love how you like simultaneously are kind of expanding your horizons either thematically or doing new stuff with your songwriting, but like you kind of keep this, like even when you're changing instrumentation and tones, you still kind of keep this sonic universe intact. And I've
Oh,
always appreciated that about Fathom Lane. Like no matter how much you experiment, there's still like this, we're in the Fathom Lane world with this. And I
mhm.
think this new record is like pushing y'all's boundaries while still kind of being true to that universe. So I'm really excited about this thing. Did you do this with at the library? Now that
Yes.
you got
Yep.
Matt Patrick on
Mhm.
Axe, great leads, by the way, Matt. If you're listening, nice work.
Yeah, he can do it all, which is
Hmm.
amazing. It's like more like make sure you get out of Matt's way if he's got a great idea for his song.
Yeah, just watch the magic happen. Because
Yeah, and sometimes I'll, like, walk away from something, thinking, "Yeah, it's not quite there yet." He'll, like, lay down something that's absolutely perfect, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Okay, I'm back in now."
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's a great person to produce records with in that way because he always gives me, um, a very kind but new take on,
Yeah.
what I'm working on, and he is kind of the quality control around there, so, yeah.
He is fun to talk to about that. Well, because one, and I don't know, maybe I just have one of these faces, but I feel like a lot of people want to talk to me about gear. Like
Mhm.
I know
Yep.
anything. Like it's just like, do you even know my bit? I do lo-fi on purpose. Like I don't know gear. I if it turns on,
Yeah,
that's
as
the
long as the
extent
blue
of
light
how I
is
know how to
lit.
use it.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
But I love talking to him about production because, like, one, he really knows his stuff, but two, you can tell how much he enjoys it and like
oh, yeah,
how much he loves getting the, oh wait, what if we took it in this direction? And he loves like actually just seeing an idea come to fruition.
yeah,
And that's really fun to see in a producer. But he's also a heck of a musician and a really nice guy, so it's just kind of
yeah,
fun to talk to him in that regard.
yeah, he
Um,
does so many different things for us, sonically and
mhm.
production-wise, and just, he's also a really great singer, so
Yeah,
when we brought
yeah.
him on board, I really feel like I really had a two-part harmony thing in
Mhm.
mind, but now it's more thinking about getting all three of those voices in the mix. And
Yeah. Well, it's also hard to go wrong, when you have Ashley Still in the mix, because your voices just blend very well together, but, she's always on point, and
yes.
it's great to hear that new texture coming in. So if folks like what they hear, when can they hear it again? Because it's currently not on the streaming services, but will it be on? Do we have to wait until July 13th for the
It's
show, or is it going to be
actually
on a
July
little early?
13th is the night before the release date, which is
Okay,
Friday the 14th.
14th,
So
14th.
we may be there after midnight. So
Hey,
might be
hey, all
yeah.
right.
Yeah, but the album drops on all the streaming services and gets released on the 14th, and then we're
Perfect.
doing the album release show at Ice House on the 13th, the night before, with Turn 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 opening. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice. Sounds like a great evening. So if you like what you hear, you can get your ears on that.
So I
July.
didn't hear we were chatting. What track did you play?
I did go on with the lookout actually.
Okay, nice.
I just like really like the guitar work on that, and
Yeah,
it just also
smoking
fit
solo.
the vibe for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, check out the whole record in a few weeks,
Yep.
folks, and we'll be talking more about this release as we go. And I'm sure there's going to be some, inside baseball on the vid chat. Follow us on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, whatever your thing is. We're going to be there. Or at least we're going to try to be there. Like I said, I don't know if I can handle responding to all the comments. If you make them, or you can just kind of hang out and take it easy with us. But we just heard new Fathom Lane. We're going to be speaking with Fathom Lane continuously until noon. But up next, here are the Mayflies USA. Track called Walking in a Straight Line here on KFAI. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Were you familiar with Mayflies USA?
No, I like there was a lot of artists, which is kind of like I one of the whole reasons I do this show is kind of like there is an information exchange
Oh yeah.
too, because it's fun to see what other people are listening to, but also it's very educational because sometimes you'll get like speaking of turn, like when they were on the show, like Adam Levy was the cat who introduced me to Judy Sill. Like,
Oh,
and that was like a huge, it was like one of those, like the record he put on, it was like one of those records that felt as monumental as like a Carole King or a Nick
right.
Drake to me, where it's just like, how was this missing
It's
from
very
my
timely.
whole radar?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of things on this list where I was just like, oh man, this is like reminding me of this band and this
Yeah.
band, and it's just like, what year was this? But like a lot of this stuff, I was just like, because it's weird. I see this in my students, like the younger generations, like they don't really care what year something come out. It all exists on a flat circle now. So
Yeah.
like a lot of bands can have this like retro sound, but it's just like,
Yeah.
nope, 1998. And then you'll like listen to a record that's like, whoa, this is like indie sleaze. And it's like, nope, 1978.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like the pop art experimental band or West Coast pop art experimental band. When I first heard
That
that,
was
I
the
was
other
like,
band. I was like, I have no idea who this is. So I'm
yeah,
really
and they made
appreciate
a
you put them
bunch of
on.
records,
Yeah.
and like now, I've seen them popping up in the used, like I saw one used yesterday, probably pretty rare in the vinyl bins. It was because it was like scratched really badly and it was still
Yeah.
like $50, So I mean,
Oh, of course.
they definitely have kind of a resurgence
Yeah.
of interest. And they made, I want to say like 8 records.
Get
So
out.
yeah,
That's insane.
and it's all out on streaming. It's such good
Yeah.
stuff. The first time I
I
heard
think
it, I thought I was hearing the weirdest Beachwood Sparks song ever. Like it was like, okay, this is Beachwood Sparks, but not wow. Like this is like completely
that is literally why I put a Beach Boys and Sparks song on this playlist. Cause I
yeah.
was like, some of this stuff I was like, because I try to pick stuff that's like, oh, this reminds me of this. And like some of this stuff I was just like, my only reference is like these two bands to
Hmm.
describe, like if I had to describe, they're like, wait, what band is that? I'm just like, I don't know. They're kind of like Beach Boys and Sparks,
Yeah.
like I'm glad you kind of made that reference because I was like, I was kind of like, there were some bands like, man, I don't even know where these guys came from, who their contemporaries were, like were they
Mhm.
like, did they know this stuff? Like, is it so like that was my stab in the dark.
Yeah.
And but like, yeah, like are they, so what year was like, did
West
they
Coast,
start like
West
the
Coast art
West
pop.
Coast experimental?
I
Yeah,
think those are late '60s records.
it sounds like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it also
Yeah,
sounds like someone could cook it up in Brooklyn today. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it would be relevant. So
Just as relevant
really,
as anything.
Ruby's making an appearance here.
She fits in well with the aesthetic
So.
too. I love
Yes.
the background by
Yeah.
the way.
Um,
Yeah, it's like, so do you like,
Mayflies
how do you
USA.
discover stuff anymore? Like or do you actually, because you mentioned like you're picking stuff up on vinyl, like do you do it the old fashioned way still? Because like I will admit I'm all internet now. Like
Mhm.
I do all my digging on the internet, and
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's not that I feel like something is lacking because I think it's a wonderful resource, but like there is something fun about kind of going to a store and
Oh
going
yeah.
like, oh, they have this record, and then taking a chance on something
Yeah.
there.
It's just so random, like, and so you're really shopping. If you can't hear it right away, like hit the play button, you're kind of
Right.
shopping on album art again, and like you're
Right.
like flipping it over, you're like maybe catching a few of the song titles and like some of the liner notes and saying, "Oh yeah, this was produced by so and so." So, what I mean?
Right.
So you're kind of taking a little bit more of a gamble on things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of exciting, because you can't actually
Mhm.
hear it, even though what you're doing is shopping for music, you can't hear
Right.
it right away.
Right.
And that's
Right.
the way I used to do it when I first got into the records, and sometimes I got burned. It was like really
Oh
cool,
yeah, a lot of times.
and like, oh man, this record is a pile of crap. So but wow, they got Hypnosis to do the cover. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but then there's other things where it's like, oh, I really like the aesthetic of this. I like the song titles, and you take it home, and you have really no idea what it's going to sound like.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just, kind of dropping the needle on a brand new experience. So I do,
It's
I do like that. It's not that I don't, I think like West Coast Art Pop was like the outro of some credits that I saw recently, and it was like, okay,
yeah.
who is this? And I looked
Yeah.
looked a little into it, and it was like, oh wow, this is amazing. And then how is this never, like you said, how has this never crossed my path before? Um,
Right.
Mayflies USA is another band. It's like you listen to their records, and it's like, oh, this must have been one of the biggest bands of their era, right? And
Oh
then no,
yeah.
it's like nobody knows who they are, but they're produced by the dude from the Posies, Chris Stamey. So there's that
Oh
connection
whoa.
there. So like they definitely have power pop pedigree, but their records just have not done a huge amount of business. So but man, you listen to it, it's like the Hang-Ups locally. It's like, oh, you listen to the
Yeah.
Hang-Ups and you're like, oh, clearly one of the biggest bands ever.
Bands in
And,
town. Yeah.
and not even in town. Like this band is huge
Just
internationally,
huge.
right?
Yeah.
But they're not. It's like,
Yeah.
what? How did that happen? So
It's it's like I tell bands to just get out of town all the time because
yeah,
like it's like at the end of the day, the Twin Cities aren't that big. And
yeah,
like every time I say this, I feel like I get all the angry eyes looking at me. Where they're like, "What do you mean?" And it's just like, no, like I'm just saying, both cities are sub 500,000 people.
yeah.
Like together, it's a million. But
Well,
like like it's like it's not that folks don't like your band. It's just like there's like everything is so fractalized that like
mhm,
genres only have like a certain amount of fans.
mhm,
And it's just like you might have just met all the people that are
right.
into that thing. You just got to go to the next town and meet all the people there that are into
Yeah,
that thing and go to the
and you
next
get
town and then you get them all together and then it works out. But like at the end of the day, like music isn't as big as like, video games are. Like it's like a specific audience
or
now.
the Vikings.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like it's not that people don't like music. Everybody likes music, but like not everyone likes it in the way that music heads like it. And that's
Yeah,
okay. That's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So it's like sometimes you get bands that it's just like everyone knows they're good.
Well,
Like Big Star is a perfect example of this, where it's
mhm,
like they're the
absolutely.
ultimate musician band, where like there's still a band that like, believe it or not, I'll run into folks that like I would think they're like, oh, this person obviously loves Big Star, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm not familiar with Alex
Yeah, who's
Chilton.
that? Big Star Memphis band? What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like there's still that whole thing
yeah.
going
Look at new
on with
bands.
that, and it's like it's who is it that, oh man, played with Camper Von Beethoven and
David
uh,
Lowery.
yeah, he had this great point at a talk that he was given, um where he said like, what is the biggest record of all time? Thriller, right? How
Hmm.
many records did it sell? 30 million. It's a
Hmm.
lot of records, but what's the world population? It's approaching 10 billion.
Yeah,
So the most famous thing of all time is like not even 0.001% of the population. So it's
yeah.
just like on that scale, like you really can't put success on contingent on like those kind of numbers, because it's just like, well, what is success then?
Yeah. Well, I
Like,
think it's always important to like make sure that you're doing the good work. And it's like, because
yeah.
I think I can't remember who told me this, but It's totally true. It's like you get 10 miles out of town and no one cares if you can fill up the turf club on a Wednesday.
Exactly.
You know?
I tell people that all the time. Where
Yeah,
it's
and
just
it's
like,
like
yeah,
they're gonna care about, does the music say something to them? You know, maybe they've checked out some videos online and they see that you can actually play live, and they're
yeah,
interested. You know, it's not like you have to prove to them, you know, that hey, we matter. You know, so
right.
as long as you're doing really good music, you know, making really good music, you know.
It's absolutely how it is too, because it's just like you a lot of, like, whenever my friends get kind of like, they're like, man, why is it it's like we're doing so well here, and then we get out of town, and it's like no, it has nothing to do with you. It's just like that town hasn't heard you 10 times yet.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like it's like that kind of thing. But like, I always tell people to get out of town, because it's like, yeah, like you can get to a point where it's like like I've had, like I play a lot of the festivals and town fairs, like in the
Mhm.
like in greater Minnesota. So like I kind of feel like playing with some of the buzz bands here. Like I kind of feel like that golfer pick where it's like the one dude, he's like all clean cut, and I'm like the dude like kind of with the cigarette, and they're like, what are you doing down here? I'm just like, I'm always here. Like
Yeah.
it's just like kind of that vibe where it's like, no, it's like you just kind of have to do the same thing you did here over there, and
Yep.
it's not quality. Sometimes it is quantity.
Yeah.
Stand by. Wednesday, they just came to town, and that's a really good record. If you haven't been able to figure out, I've been kind of playing that record a lot. It's kind of my favorite coming out of the year so far. But we also had Badfinger and Mayflies USA in that set, making a mixtape for Fathom Lane today here on KFAI, because this is Desert Islands, the show where I make mixtapes based on my guests' 10 records that they would bring to a desert island. And we're speaking with Michael right now. So we were talking about the new record, and it's going to be available July 14th. Let's talk about this release show, just because I feel like, you know, it's kind of why we're here. So let's get the who's, the what's, the where's, and the whys. You mentioned Turn, Turn, Turn is
Yeah.
playing with you. When does music start at this
I think
event? Is
it's
it going to
9
be
p.m. I think
okay?
it's
So
9 p.m. music. And it's at Ice House Minneapolis, which I think we had our first show at Ice House
mhm.
back when Ice House was kind of a newer venue in town, and we've been back there several times. And if you haven't been to Ice House to hear music, you really need to do that. You know, even
Yeah,
if you don't come to see us on Thursday, July 13th, um, at Ice House, do yourself a favor and get out there. It's a room that's really dedicated to the music that's happening in the room.
yeah, yeah,
It's the music is front and center, and that's their governing philosophy too. So
yeah. It's a room that kind of like, if you find a spot, you can really let yourself swim in the music.
absolutely,
It's great for jazz nights, but like I think this is a great room for y'all's aesthetic as well. Like this is a great place to see Fathom Lane. I just think the vibes are a perfect match
yeah,
for
yeah, I think so
what
too.
y'all are going for, and it sounds like a great evening. Turn, Turn, Turn is supporting.
Yeah,
Um,
which we're absolutely thrilled about. I love all three of the kind of the lead characters in Turn Turn Turn. Just Barb has actually sat in with us
oh right, yeah,
for a few gigs here and there, and Savannah. We did a show together back at the Astor, like in like 2014, something like. And so
yeah,
you know, been friends with Savannah for so long,
yeah,
and Adam has been a friend for a long time, kind of a songwriting co-conspirator with like some of the influences that we bring to the table. We
yeah.
share, you know, so we've
Oh yeah,
always appreciated each other's songwriting. So
and
uh,
he's a writer that like never stops. I feel like.
absolutely, yeah, prolific. You know, I wish I could be half as prolific. You know, and that's one of the things that Taylor Swift, the song "Cowboy Like Me" is on my
Yeah,
10
yeah,
records. And I don't know if you're going to spin that track, but
Oh, we spun it. We spun it.
Okay, cool, yeah. One of the things that I find like inspiring about her and about that particular track is like there are like 6 songs in there. You know, it's like there are so many different sections to that song. I feel like that could be a song in and of itself. Like for me, I would take one of those 6 parts and make a whole song out of it, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she has such an the way that she flows through the storytelling of that song, with the different hooks that come along. It's like, oh wait, this is the same song. So Adam is like that too. You know, just really prolific, just really such a great ability
Yeah.
to. And I don't even say crank it out because it sounds like the quality isn't there. But man, it's like it's not just about quantity. He's pumping out some really interesting songs.
I think he's cranking things out in terms of like sometimes I think he gets ideas where it's just like, oh, this can't be pigeonholed. So like he'll just start a new project for that to
Right.
exist.
Yeah.
I think that's how he cranks things out, where it's like, hey, this doesn't fit with this vehicle, but this needs to be something.
Yeah. Right.
But he does
Right.
you're absolutely right. I think he is a craftsman and really takes the time
Hmm.
on his stuff. And yeah, that's a great bill. It's a great lineup.
Yeah. Should be
Uh,
a really fun night.
July 13th, Ice House,
Yes.
Minneapolis.
Ice
Battle
House,
Show.
Minneapolis.
So we were kind of talking about, it's funny that we mentioned Adam Levy because Adam was the person who introduced me to Judy Sill. So we got some Judy Sill coming up in this set. We also have Aretha Franklin coming up in this set. But first, here's a song by Karen Dalton here on Desert Islands. This is one of these songs for me. This Karen Dalton track that
Yeah,
like,
I'm not familiar with that.
oh yeah, Something on Your Mind off of the record In My Own Time.
Okay.
It's one of those records where like I thought, like when I first heard it, it was just like you can kind of like hear it feels modern, and then
Mhm.
you realize like, whoa, this was made when?
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah.
like one of those records we were kind of talking about, like, oh, like I can hear Joni Mitchell, but I can hear like Yola Tango and Phoebe Bridgers in this,
Interesting.
and it's like, I think it came out in 78.
Okay.
Just a cool record. It's just a cool sounding record.
Are you familiar with Dory Previn?
No.
Okay. So she's a really interesting songwriter from the early to mid 70s. She was married to Andre Previn, and
Okay.
the famous conductor, composer, the classical world. And she was married, and Mia Farrow actually broke up their
Okay.
marriage.
Oh,
So it's
that's an interesting
basically,
family tree. the
yeah,
Ferrier family tree.
there's a lot of layers to that story. But
Yeah.
this particular offshoot of the story is she made these disturbing psychological breakdown records
Whoa.
set to some of the best production in like 70s music, you know, so
Yeah.
strings, all the voices, just the glossiest, most beautiful
Yeah.
70s production. But the woman is talking about absolutely falling apart at the seams,
Of
revenge
course.
fantasies, all these things. So it's another one. Like I guess I thought of her because I discovered her and Judy Sill at around the same time, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
they're both really just very complex women, who had a lot to say,
Yeah.
who didn't really have a forum to say it because of the patriarchy, you know, and so
Right.
um, check out Dory Previn sometimes. She made several records. Um,
It's like, I need to check out. I'm gonna write that down. Actually, I'm just gonna send it to myself
yeah,
in
there
a
you go.
chat, because I
Yeah,
feel like that's how.
chat with yourself about it.
Well, I mean, like I feel like if I don't if I don't like kind of like, I will email things to myself because like I get a notification
Yeah.
And then it's like, and we're like, wait, what is that? Oh, right. And then it's like this whole
Yeah.
document full of
We're
stuff
so
that you're
overloaded
supposed
with
to do
stuff
or supposed to
now.
check out. Because I've noticed I used to do the thing where I was like, oh, I'm just going to write notes to myself. I got it on Google Docs. It's in my phone. I take it everywhere. And then I just look through my Google Docs and there's just like a sea of untitled documents of just like, what is
What?
this for? Are
What?
these song ideas? Are these artists I should check? Are these band? What? Okay. And it's just like, I've been doing this now because like I feel like it's the only way for me to be like why do I have that? And we're like, oh, it's like, you know, you get that little red thing where it's just like,
Mhm.
why am I? It's like, I don't know if it's working. I'm sure.
Report back.
Yeah, I should track my progress over
Yeah,
time
for
and
sure.
see what happens. Okay, we got. I should probably get this underwriting cart in here.
Check that box.
Before we do the next talk break. Just because we only have 28 minutes here.
Yeah.
So I will. I don't want to. Don't want to have that. Be like, all right, 11:59. Here's
Yeah.
here's the cart,
Here's
which
the required card.
unfortunately sometimes happens. It never attribute to malice, which could be contributed to ADHD.
Yeah.
So that's gonna happen. But yeah, after this Judy Sill track, we got Aretha, and then we got that. Yeah, I guess like the there's always like I go on kicks where it's just like you discover something and it's just like all you want to talk about like for a while, you know. And it's like I don't know if it's healthy or not.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to have that listening habit, like that Henry Rollins listening habit where it's just like it's like an active practice, and like he has a whole essay of just like I consider things into like carbohydrate listens and protein listens.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like that. Like it's just like sometimes you just need some light background vibe that you want to clean the house to, or do your dishes, or do some writing, or just
That's
recharge. And then
interesting. I've
sometimes
never
you need to
heard
like
that.
sit. You need to sit with a record and like let it, you know, if sometimes things are just too intellectual for me and I need to let it pound me until I figure out what I let, you know. So it's like but he, like, so I get that, but the thing he does that, whoa.
I think that was me.
Okay. The thing that he does is like, he kind of like actively treats it like a workout and like seeks out new stuff. Whereas I feel like sometimes I get into like ruts and obsessions where it's just like, oh my God, I just need this. And then I feel like I'm ignoring this entire buffet of like I feel like I'm not eating my vegetables in a weird way where it's just like, I feel like it's just like, this is just, you know, you bought a package of Little Debbie's and you're just, you know, like, it's like you should
just gotta finish the box. Yeah.
but it's also like sometimes it's like you encounter an artist like Sun Ra where it's just like, I dig the concept, I love where he's going with this, but you have such a vast body of work that I feel like I need a guide or like some sort of like Sherpa to be like, hey, you need to start here.
I feel that way about Captain Beefheart.
Yeah. I think I definitely got more into like Safe as Milk first. I feel like Trout Mask Replica is a weird Everest in a way. Like I almost feel like you're required to listen to it.
Oh, absolutely.
But like there's also like this weird thing where like I feel like I think in college when I was listening to it, like I almost had this weird thing where I felt like I felt guilty for not getting it at first, you know, and like I like had to like keep listening to it to be like, no, that like it's Like it's the end of The Usual Suspects, where it's like, where's Kaiser Soze? Like, where does this all line up? And
it's
then like,
you know, they say when you're trying to help a kid get over being a picky eater, they have to try something like 10 times before they're even gonna like really
yeah,
know if they like it or not, you know. So I
right,
mean, I feel like there are some artists like that where it's like it just takes a few times, you know, whereas
yeah,
other things just grab me right by the face.
right.
And I just am like you said, you just want to go down that rabbit hole and live there for a long time.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's I think sometimes like I get stuck in a vibe too. Like Krungman is like a band. When I discovered them, I kind of lived in that like in that universe for a
Mhm.
while because it's just a fun space to be in. It can kind of be multifaceted. It can be chill. It can be
Yeah.
uplifting. It can, it's instrumental.
I
But
felt that way about Miles Davis Electric period. Like
yeah,
for so long, I was like, "Oh, never want to listen to another something ever again. Never, no
yeah,
other music. I don't need
yeah,
anything else. You know, I
yeah,
want this at my every event in my life. I want this at my funeral. Like I
yep.
want to wake up to this in the
Oh
morning.
yeah,
This is my brushing my teeth music. I mean, thank God I'm not there now, but for a while, that's where I was perfectly happy.
yeah,
That's all I wanted to hear was Miles Davis play squawky electric, you know, like vibey jazz, you know. So,
yeah.
but then I've since moved on, obviously. But
Ooh, stand by. We have Aretha Franklin there in that set. Judy Sill and Karen Dalton making a mixtape for Fathom Lane today here on Desert Islands, based off of the 10 records they would bring to a desert island. Still speaking with Michael, both on the internet, but now we are internet and radio. So we were talking about.
did you make that break, dude? I mean, that was harrowing. Like seeing like the action you had to take to get back live on air. Like,
It happens sometimes. It's a
okay.
dangerous thing. Yeah, but it's we speaking of that, we will have some underwriting to get
Yeah.
to. But we were talking off mic about listening habits, just because I know you are a songwriter that does delve in and like really try to uh, crate dig and find new and exciting things for just vibe or inspiration. But I guess my question as a songwriter, I'm just kind of curious about this. Do you go through periods where you're not listening to anything? Where like you're just really into like, oh, we should be rehearsing this, or I'm trying to work out the kinks of this riff that I've been like, do you go through, or do you need like like a almost like a buttress or a ballast? Like, do you need to like step out of your own writing?
I guess I kind of step out of certain things sometimes. Like
Mhm.
I felt like for a time there when we were kind of really high in the trending high in the Minnesota music community or whatever, I really like got obsessed with like listening to what my peers were doing all the time. So I was
Yeah,
constantly
yeah,
listening to, don't want to say the competition, but like out there, like listening, like, oh my God, like just listening to everything that was going on, and kind of getting in this kind of local music mindset. And
oh, same. It's a
um,
talented scene, and I like
yeah,
hearing what other
and it's
people
so
are up to.
easy to do, because
Yeah,
there's so many different kinds of great music being made. But I feel like for periods during making this last record, I really tried to block all that out. And I
yeah,
kind of went back to, I'm going to dig through my new music is going to be music that I don't know of that was made in 1968 or
right.
1974. It's like that's new music to me. And so I wanted to take a mentality of, just going to find new things, whether it's like um, reading through things that I was reading, whether it was
Yeah,
through crate digging, like you said, that's a
yeah,
really good way to go with that. But like just, going through sealed records from the 70s, like someone had all these 70s records that had never been opened, and it's like,
oh, yeah.
and like flipping through and like, oh, it's a brand new record, sure, it was made in
Could be anything. Yeah,
1975, brand new, so um discovering things through that means and really trying to not think about what other voices in my community were saying, and get back to what my true influences were as well, you know.
Right. It's you mentioned Miles. He had the great quote about like finding your voice. It's like it takes a
Mhm.
long time to sound like yourself.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you have to kind of block out things, not because it's um I don't know. It's more of like it because Victor Wooten also had this great quote of like you need to be entertained.
Hmm.
Like in your craft, if you're doing something artistic, you know, at the end of the day, you're dealing with aesthetics. So it's like you're probably gonna almost anesthetize yourself because you're hearing and experiencing the same thing over and over, and you're not looking at it the same way someone who's never heard it before
Right.
might. And there is something, I think he's absolutely right. There is something to seeing another musician play and just like, wow, what a show. You
Hmm.
know, like and just kind of getting re-inspired again to be like, oh,
Getting
I
that
can't
boost.
wait to go home and practice. And like
Yeah.
not in the
Yeah.
way where you said like it's not the competition, it's more of like it's just inspiring. It's
It's the
inspirational to see.
inspiration. Yeah.
And it's like I'm always curious to see where people get that. Like, do you get it from live shows, or do you get it from records? And the live shows have been kind of tough the past couple
Yeah.
years. It's
Yeah.
like
When we didn't have any. Yeah.
so like yeah, the listening habits have always fascinated me, and always have a good time talking about music with you. It was, by the way, I'm speaking with Michael from Fathom Lane right now. The release show is July 13th. We heard a cut off their new record, which will be out July 14th. So if you like what you hear, you can hear it again real soon. Up next, we have some Kinks. We also have the West Coast Pop Band coming up and a little bit of Yola Tango. But first, we have this. All right, got it in. That's
Yeah.
that's that's all we needed to make sure we got to. Yeah, it's like a. I guess the only reason I ask is like for me, I think a lot of the performance for me is like, and maybe it's just because I work as a tech too, so like
Right.
I'm just kind of half watching shows at work. You know, it's mostly you do have to observe and make sure like because like summer shows, a lot of people pass out.
Yeah. Ugh.
Um, you gotta watch out for that.
Yeah.
Or
Definitely.
you know, like the show I worked recently. Don't want to speak. Don't want to assume other people's habits. I'm not trying to be judgy, but sometimes the kids like to take some substances that
Yeah.
they're not used to taking, and it gets a little real for them.
Yeah.
And we got to help them out with that.
Yeah. Gonna
You
make it
know,
even
so
more
that
real
is
for
the
'em.
thing. But like for me, I feel like I almost have like a guilt factor with listening habits where it's just like I should, like it's almost like a pile of dishes I need doing. It's like, yeah, I know I should be listening to that record, I know I should be
Yeah.
checking that out, but like what, like it's not that I don't get inspired listening to other records. It's just like sometimes I feel like it feels like homework.
Hmm.
Whereas like something you go see like Kamasi Washington play and you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, those guys were killer. I can't wait to
Yeah.
like get back in the ring and start,
Yeah.
start like it's just like I don't know.
You can see that.
I feel like it now that everything's content.
Hmm.
Sometimes like actually going out and like finding new records like almost intimidates me.
Hmm.
And
Well,
like I
yeah.
almost retreat into my own guitar and kind of forget about the world, and it's
I think
just
that's perfectly valid way to deal with it too. It's like
yeah.
you really have to be your own best filter, and I think the filter changes. Sometimes you're wide open, and sometimes
Yeah.
you need to like tone it
I
down. You know.
I have a rule of three with this just because one, we are constantly inundated with content. Like it's just, it's kind of served to us, like you idly open your phone and like a video starts. So
Right.
it's like there is that, but like I think for me, because I'm constantly, trying to with records and stuff, like I'm terrible with TV or like books. I have a rule of three of like, if three people in my life mention something,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I check it out. Because
Yeah.
it's usually the people where it's just like, I trust their judgment. They're pretty, like, they usually get into some pretty cool stuff. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if three of those people are like, oh, you haven't seen such and such, like, that's kind of when I check it out. And for
Yeah.
me, I think I'm getting there with music, because like there's so many bands
Yeah.
and everyone's in a band, that
So
it's
much
not
fun.
like it's more of like, just it's almost like it's like tiring to be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so like, you having the three people be like, oh, I really liked this record, then it's kind of like, it's that quality control. Because
Mm-hmm.
for me, it also makes me it feel more personal,
Right.
where it's like, I kind of still feel tied to like why I kind of got into this, which is like, it's like what Bob Dylan said, like, you do have to serve somebody. And I think a lot of musicians forget this. It's like the Eastern musical tradition, like, there's like, you're kind of like set with a mentor. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times, like, you don't really start performing live until you're like 30, like, you don't
Right.
like branch out into your, like, you'll perform with other musicians, but it's like like, you don't really branch out to yourself until you're like a
Yeah.
fully formed adult.
Till you
And I
become an elder yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like Western culture views that as like, man, that's oppressive, man. Like, I gotta let my freak flag fly, and it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like, like, I do think like, it's not quality control as much as like, it's like they're setting it up where it's just like, hey, you got to understand why people consume music, so
Mm-hmm.
like, when people come, like, you kind of have to deliver the service.
Right.
And like, I think a lot of musicians in the West are just like, no, it's about we're so tied to celebrity culture, where it's like, no, it's about that end result. And it's
Yeah.
just like, that's not even real.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, maybe you'll play a show to a lot of people, but like, I think all working bands know just as well as any that, like, yeah, you'll have that show where it's like, whoa, that was a huge crowd, and then the next show is like right back to like the
Yeah.
bands and their
Like,
significant others, and you're like, damn.
yep, yep, exactly. It has that kind of humbling quality to it.
Right. And
Sure.
it's so I do think like tying yourself to the community is like, it kind of reminds me, it's like, oh yeah, this is why we do it. Like, it's a
Mhm.
ritual of gathering to be like, hey, everyone, we're not at work right now.
Yeah.
Safe. We're here to celebrate. We're here to just enjoy this thing that we all didn't know we had in common.
Right.
And in a weird way, like, you know, that's the fun thing I do like about working big shows, is
Hmm.
just like, the small club shows, it's kind of, you're easy to be like, yep, bathrooms that way, trash cans that way, it's like, it's very, but the big shows, like, eventually you kind of have to surrender to the beast
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
let the crowd, like, you just kind of are like, okay, just,
Yeah.
it's like the Walmart greeter effect, like,
Right.
they just need to know someone's watching.
Yeah. Someone's there. Yeah. Keep it
And
together.
observing the organism of
Yeah.
just like, whoa, like, everyone is collectively, like, it kind of builds, and everyone like becomes the band in a
Yeah.
weird way, and
Yeah.
that it's
I've
like,
had I've had that experience several times this summer, which is great. Like I saw, like in just a couple weeks of June, I saw Love and Rockets at
mm,
Dallas, which was one of those, like, here I was like, oh my gosh, it's my tribe again, like,
yeah,
so,
yeah,
and so that was a really great experience. And then just a couple days later, went to see one of the most important bands in my life, The Cure, and again
I
had
heard
that
that was a
same-
great show
it
too.
was
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
yeah,
Not and it was so great, but it still wasn't the best Cure show I've ever seen. But it was up there.
yeah.
And then I went to the Taylor Swift show, and so with my daughter, and so I had.
How was that? Because like, and I know, like, we folks, I get it, we've heard a lot about Taylor Swift, and a lot of people have Taylor Swift fatigue. But she's one of those artists where it's like, look, you don't have to like her music, but you kind of have to respect the game.
And
I mean,
I mean,
like,
it's no
she
doubt she's a
hustles, and
generational. She's a
oh, she
generational.
handles that level of fame. Like, say what you will about her, but she handles that level of fame with poise and grace that I don't think we've really seen. Like, I think maybe only Beyonce
Mm-hmm.
handles that, because she's Elvis big.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's rare when you get Elvis big,
Yeah,
and
everybody's got an opinion on her, even if they don't like her music or don't,
yep,
that she's
yeah,
gotten into the pop culture, into the, cultural conversation.
it's wild that you say that, because like I feel like at this point, like I like I'm the contrarian going like, no, I refuse to have an opinion on Taylor Swift. Like it's just like, it's like, I don't, it's like, I'm not like, if she's your thing, I get it. Like, cause I respect the craftsmanship, but it's like, it's such a big thing that I'm like, all right, everyone stop making fun of people for liking her. Stop making fun of people for not liking her. Like
Yeah,
she is like, like you said, like the Vikings. She's like
yeah,
NFL big. Like
yeah.
she's not a musician. She's like part of culture.
It was really
Like
good.
she's so huge.
It was really good to go there with really huge expectations for what could
Hmm.
happen, and then have
Yeah.
it be like, whoa, like way exceeded. And not just her. It wasn't
Yeah.
just her. It was the people, the
Of
crowd.
course.
It was just absolutely amazing. Just the last time I really felt that kind of kinship amongst fans was like back when I was following the Grateful Dead around. It's like
Yeah.
that kind of.
Yeah.
Um, there was a lot of kindness that was
Yes. Yeah.
in force, and I say more power to it.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
that was something that I really took away from the whole experience. But it was also in those other crowds too. In the Cure crowd, I was there sitting there before the show, and I might even posted this. I love the Cure crowd.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Yeah.
it just felt like I was at home.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
Stand by. This might be our last talk break. 18 is over. What is over the hill
18
by
is
the
over
West
the
Coast
hill.
Pop Experimental Art Band. I love that song title because like I definitely felt that as a millennial teenager. Like we were kind of raised to be like, yeah, we better get a career, or we're it's quarter life crisis. Yeah, it's just like
And that
it's
song
such
I
a,
think came out in '68.
I know,
They're still
deliciously
speaking to you.
snarky. Some things never change,
Yeah.
folks. We also had New Yo Tango and well-respected man by the Kinks, making a Mickles,
Easy
making a
peasy.
Michael for Mixtape here on here on Desert Islands, making a mixtape for Michael from Fathom Lane today on Desert Islands, who's joining me right now. Thank you so much. I always dig talking music with you just because I feel like it goes really fun directions, and I get a lot of good brain food out of it, and some things
Me
for me
too.
to like check out later.
Yeah.
But if folks like what they heard from Fathom Lane earlier, where can they hear it again? Where's the best place to follow Fathom Lane, get the new music? Do you have a preferred online spot for them to check it out?
We have a new website. There still are websites, and we have one. It's not just
Nice.
social media anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
fathomlane.com. You can actually go out there now and stream the record right there, like a preview stream. You don't
Yeah.
need any kind of a streaming player or anything. It just like loads for you. You can check it out.
Nice.
But then on the 14th, everything comes out. It'll be on all the streaming services. You can go out and pre-save it on Spotify. We'd love it if you did that. I think you can hit a pre-sale on Apple Music and all
Nice.
the things. We're out there on all the streaming services. So you can also go to Bandcamp and buy from us there. We'll take your money any way you want to give it to us. So
Sounds great. Sounds
yeah,
great.
hopefully you'll get a good record in return. So so all of that happens Friday the 14th. It all comes out the night before the 13th. We're doing that show at Ice House with Turn Turn Turn. So that should be a lot of fun.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming back on the show. I'm glad we could
Thanks for having me.
get a vid chat in. Yeah, this is great. This is great. So congrats on the new record. It sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
Next week, I'm going to be speaking with Asia Minor. Speaking of fantastic sounding records, they have an EP coming out. Really like the two singles they put out this year. So we're going to be talking to them about that And their EP release is also at Ice House. So tune in for that next week. Here is some Jonathan Richman. Stay tuned for Democracy Now!
Well, thanks.
There we go. So we got 5 minutes till Democracy Now! That's really, I gotta end that on time. But yeah, Jonathan Richman was another artist for me, like kind of rediscovering in a weird way, because it's just like I feel like he was always like the Velvet Underground for me, where it's like an artist that I'm just like, well, yeah, like they're good, and then like I never really dove in, and then when I dove in, I fell in love with the band.
Much. Yeah, there's so much.
It's like, so when I actually dove into his catalog, I'm just like, why wasn't I listening to this guy the whole time? He's great. Like he's funny, he's groovy, you know, like it's like it's like a kind of,
it's so great discovering like an artist for the first time, and then realizing, oh, they've already made 15 records, you know. It's like
it's kind of like finding like a really good show on Netflix that got canceled, and it's just like, man, I can't believe they canceled this. It's like, they still made 8 seasons. It's all right. It's like, I can make do. I can deal with this.
They had a run. They had a good run.
Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, that's another thing for me of like why I think when I was younger, in my 20s, in my teens, you know, when I knew everything and I was gonna let you know it. I had opinions and they were the correct ones. I definitely like loved making fun of like the schlocky movies and the like, but now I just see, like, even when I'm watching an Ed Wood film, like, yeah, it's campy and it's just like, but like at the end of the day, I know there were like gaffers on that project, like just trying to feed their family, and they're just like, man, I'm not into this movie, but like, hey, the checks are cashing, and it's like, it is so hard to do literally anything. It's so hard to do something bad, you know, and I think most of the time that's how you get good, is like you just keep failing, like it's not even like failing, like it's just like you have to make a thing to realize like, oh, I guess this is harder than I thought. I should probably up my game a little bit. And then and it's just like,
I think it was
so hard to release a record and make a record that the fact that anyone is making them still today,
right? Yeah,
it's like people deserve their flowers for like, hey, I don't think you realize how hard it is to do that. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to make anything.
Yeah.
Just be happy for the people showing up.
That reminds me of a quote that I heard recently. I can't remember who said it. It's like, if you can't handle failure, you'll never handle success. You know.
No, yeah.
So
that's such a good point, because like, even like it won't mean the same thing.
Yeah,
I think like I do think there is like, it's like, not that everything has to be this like Joseph Campbell hero's journey, but like it that kind of thinking, I think, does kinda help like in a healing journey. Like it's kind of therapeutic to kind of look at your own journey and do that. But like like I just think art is so personal too, that like, who am I to tell? It's like that quote from High Fidelity, like, how can it be bullshit to state a preference?
Yeah,
you know. Like, so it's like, it's at the end of the day, like, you can be making your own thing, and like, you know, you might just not know what that artist is doing. You might be you might be projecting your own insecurities of just like, it's just like that they might be going for that, you know. Like it's just like, so like, kind of focusing on just like, hey, I just gotta make my thing, and I like, hey, I like this. This is neat to me. Like, I think that's really all you have to focus on at the end of the day, and just kind of, I don't know. How many times can I say at the end of the day?
You said
Speaking of that, at the end of the show, now that Democracy Now is on, I got to clear the studio and make way
Okay.
for the next show. But this was awesome.
Are you going to be around on the 13th?
I'm actually I might be flying to the East Coast.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Let me know, because if you are, I'll put you on the list.
Heck yeah.
Oh,
This is also a reason I invite folks like you on the shows. Like sometimes I won't be there to support. So like this is like sometimes the only way I can.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's
I
awesome,
I definitely, you know, it's just because like that's a thing I definitely kind of feel. And maybe I'm just doing this to myself. I feel like insecure about like not being able to go see shows because like I'm working other shows. And it's like I want to be there. I do.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
should be, like,
I
nominated
try to
for
do
the-
this. I try to do what I can. But
Yeah.
if I'm in town, I would love to go.
Awesome.
And so yeah, I'll let you know. But I also don't want you to like waste a spot on ceremony just in case I might not even be able like because then it's just like, hey, give that to, you know, if I can't physically be in the room, like don't, you know, there's you only get so many spots on those.
You're not there, we get Biden.
Yeah, there you go. And see what he's up to. You know, he's probably not busy.
I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, this is a good hang. Love talking with you, and good to see you again. And congrats! Seriously, this record sounds awesome. It sounds great.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to see. Hopefully see some of it live. You know, last time the Rochester gig, I thought you guys sounded really good. And I feel like that was the last time I saw you.
Yeah, that was a good night.
It was a good night.
That was the one at the Indeed. Was it Indeed Brewing? Was that
Thesis? I think.
Thesis. Yeah, that was a fun night.
Yeah, I like that spot. I like.
I loved your guys' set too. I was like,
thank you.
Up
Appreciate
for it. So yeah,
appreciate that. Yeah. Well, we'll have to do another one if we can't. That's like another thing. I feel like it gets to the point where it's just like it's like the guaranteed way to like hang out is just be on the same event.
Yeah. Then
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. If not one of those things. But yeah, let's try to get something. Yeah, that'd be good,
man.
That'd be good. All right. Well, good to see you.
Well,
I'm gonna click
good
the
to
button
see you.
and then do the fun part. Do the typey stuff and get going. But yeah, if I'm not there, kill it. Have a good time. And yeah, good to see you.
Have a good one.